Hi there, I'm Michelle Sandlin. I'm a writer, journalist, columnist, and a drummer. I recently had an opportunity to sit down with Jared Falk of Drumeo and conduct a one-on-one live broadcast interview and ask him some of the questions that I thought were important for me to understand more about Drumeo and also for the viewers to understand more about this really great program. Jared and the team at Drumeo have been very influential and very much my teachers in my journey over the last 3 years to learn how to play the drums. If you are not familiar with Drumeo, I definitely suggest that you check it out today. That's drumeo.com. Also, please follow me via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. You will find links to all of my profiles below this video. Thanks so much, and please enjoy the interview. Today we have Jared Falk, who is with Drumeo, and I'm very excited to have him with us in the virtual studio today across several thousand miles, I think, because he is actually a very big inspiration of mine and has become my drum teacher, whether he realizes it or not. And he has a wonderful community of drummers called Drumeo, a wonderful online program. And so without further ado, Jared, I'd like to introduce you and have you tell a little bit about yourself and kind of where the idea of Drumeo came from.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me and setting this all up. I love doing this kind of stuff. So
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. I started teaching a long time ago. Like I started playing when I was 15, and I'm 33 now, so that's like, whatever, 18 years. And I started teaching like only a couple of years after I started playing. And I taught for a while, even while I was in high school, and then I went on tour after high school with the band. We toured all around the United States. And then when I came home, like I really did not enjoy the touring process, being trapped in a van, and travel was horrible. I love being on stage, I love performing, and that's really, really fun, but everything in between wasn't my thing. And so I came home and I started teaching again. I got connected with one student who was really good at computer stuff. His name was Rick Kettner, and me and him became good friends and business partners, and that was around 2002. We started uploading videos online, downloadable videos for sale, and that was an interesting time because there's still people using dial-up internet. There was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no YouTube. You know, that all that stuff came later, and so people were really upset that we were selling downloads. And so we're like, okay, we'll go to DVDs because that's like the normal video medium.
Right.
And so maxed out my credit card and put out our first DVD package, and then from there it just kind of, you know, we added another DVD package a couple months later, and it kind of snowballed. And then in 2012, 2005, we actually went full-time, both of us. And in 2012, we finally got to switch back to doing downloads. And now that that's when we launched Drumeo. And the idea with Drumeo is students can come, learn from a variety of different instructors. We launch one new lesson every single day. And that's kind of the ongoing service side of it. And we also have drum packs. So I have a package out called Successful Drumming. We have one called the Drumming System, and then various other packages. And all of these are kind of hosted on the drumeo.com website. And that's where we kind of focus the majority of our energy now, and working with big special guests and doing things that I never ever thought we would be able to do from the middle of nowhere in Canada. So it's great.
Right, exactly. Well, I think of myself a bit as probably not your typical student. I kind of started drumming a little bit later in life. It was a bucket list item of mine, and I don't mind saying that I'm 50 years old and a grandmother, even though hopefully you'll say I look really great for 50. But you know, I definitely am not, I think, your typical drumming student. I had always felt that I wanted to learn how to play the drums since I was a child. I was a pretty excellent air drummer in high school and college. I always thought of myself, and I did play piano as a child, and then all through high school and college, and thereafter was playing guitar. But really always in the back of my mind was this whole idea of drumming, and so about almost 3 years ago, I did what a lot of people do when they decide to take up an instrument, which is to sign up for traditional lessons. And I'm not here at all to pan traditional lessons, because they definitely have their place, and I think that people learn things in a variety of ways, and for me, while that was, I think, a great way to sort of get started, what happened was I would have a 30-minute lesson on a Tuesday, but then it would be 7 days again until that 30-minute lesson on a Tuesday. And between that period of time, I felt like I wanted to keep going beyond what was just being taught on a weekly basis. So I started looking at different things online, which is how I came upon Drumeo. And I guess it was about maybe 6 or 8 months ago I signed up, and so I'm here also to tout the program as really being wonderful, because for me it really excelled my ability to get more proficient in some very rudimentary, if you'll excuse the pun, we talk about rudiments a lot, but rudimentary skills are very important for drummers. But I found that what I could even go out there and find on my own in 30 minutes far outweighed what I could get out of a 30-minute drum lesson. So I'm a big fan of what you do. I think it's really wonderful, and thought it would be really great to kind of hear some of your background, what you're thinking about Drumeo in terms of moving forward, what the future holds, and that sort of thing. So as we get started, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and how old you were and so forth when you started playing drums, and what kind of sparked that interest?
Well, you mentioned air drumming before, and that's pretty much what sparked my interest in drumming. Is I was in choir class and I saw someone air drumming to the song that we were listening to, and I just thought that looks like so much fun. So I went home and I told my parents that I really want to play drums, and they were like, super supportive, model parents when it comes to their child wanting to play drums. Most times parents are like, maybe you should choose a quieter instrument. Naturally, people think drums are really loud. So they set me up with a drum set. They built like a drum room for me, because I lived on a farm and stuff. And so that was like hugely instrumental. And they got me set up with really, really good teachers. Within the first 5 years, I probably had 10 different teachers.
Wow. And
it was just really helpful. Like some teachers would come and I would take lessons for a while, and we kind of get to the point where, okay, I was like obsessive practicing, so I'm ready to move on to someone different. So then I got, like, one teacher had a really good technical perspective. One teacher was like, he didn't even understand how to write out sheet music. He just played with songs, and so I would learn completely different stuff. And so that was kind of how I first learned, and I thought it was great. So.
Wow, well, that's really cool. Well, do you think that there's any sort of like age barrier, not in terms of being too old, because I don't believe in that, but being too young to really have the dexterity and the ability? I know there are a lot of kids online today that you see on YouTube and so forth that, might be 4 and 5 years old that seem to be jamming pretty well, but I mean, I would imagine it depends on their ability to do so. When would you say is a good age to get them started?
I think when there's a young child, like I have 2 boys, one is 4 and one is 2, and I don't think either of them are necessarily ready to start playing. Maybe they'll watch this 5 years from now and they'll be like, Dad, I was totally ready. You should. But I think it really depends on the child. Like you said, you see some kids, then they're just amazing at age 3 or 4. I think there's a video going around from a 3-year-old who's like leading a whole orchestra. And now it's just like, the toms are almost angled down, and he's staring up at the drum set, and that's crazy. But for me, it really just depends on the child. Like some kids at 5 or 4 might be ready, and some kids they might be more like 8, 9, or 10. I know for me, 15 was a good age, even though I wish I would have started earlier. I wasn't ready really.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I know when I got started, the big question was, when do you buy the drum set, right? So I think I had one lesson, went up to Guitar Center, bought me a Remo drum pad, and for about a week I played on that pad, and I thought, this is really great, but I got to go get a drum kit.
Yeah.
this is really hindering my ability. So that's when I guess you know that you've really made that commitment when you're going out and you're paying bucks, right, for a
Hmm.
drum kit. So I did that, and I found that obviously your ability grows from there to be able to really play around with some different things. But I think about kids also first getting started, and like you mentioned, it's not a quiet instrument. It's not something that's easy to quiet down. But what would you advise to parents out there who have a kid who wants to take drum lessons, and they really need a kit to be able to develop their skill set? How soon is too soon, or is it right away they should think about purchasing one?
I would say there's really good rental programs. You can rent a kit for like $30 a month. Some places maybe even cheaper, and you can do that. Or what I would tell parents when I was teaching is find a kit that's maybe used on the classifieds to start with, because generally if you buy a kit that's used, and let's say that the child doesn't actually want to follow through with it after a couple years, the kits hold their value pretty good. Like a beginner kit is worth in between $300 and $600, right?
Wow.
Whether the kids used it for however long, because they're really hard to break. So unless you're like burning them or throwing them in the basement and pouring water all over them, I don't think I think the kit's going to be worth relatively the same. So you're not really just like throwing the money away if they end up not liking it. You can generally sell it for what you paid for, or at least close to what you paid for.
Right,
So
exactly. Well, I know you guys obviously have just a growing list of great instructors. I mean, really
mm,
stellar instructors there at Drumeo. And so I'm curious, how do you have new instructors kind of join the Drumeo family? Is it more of an organic thing, or is it more strategic in terms of who you go after?
yeah. Well, our local instructors are guys that I had worked with personally. A lot of them were actually my teachers or people I've played with in different musical projects. And so those were all just approached on an invite basis when we originally launched Drumeo. And they are kind of been the foundation of the lessons and what we do. There's some really, really great instructors. It's amazing in Vancouver how many full-time drummers there are. And they're all just super passionate about playing drums, teaching drums, and so that's been great. We have other like special guests come in, and generally that's by invite. So we'll basically ask them to come out, and we've got some amazing guests that we just had Scott Pellegrom out. I don't know if you saw that lesson, but he's like this.
Sure.
Yeah, he's a clinician and a rhythmist, he calls himself, and he is just like he did things on the drum set that I never thought were possible. So the lesson's launching later today, but and yeah, so we have lots of guys that come up by invite, and then we have some guys come out that we work through different drum companies. So we have a really good relationship with Yamaha Canada, and they've been so supportive of what we've been doing since the beginning. Like before everyone else got on board with Drumeo, Yamaha's really supported us. And so the first guy that they brought out was Larnell Lewis, and he was playing with Snarky Puppy. After that we got him out, and then we've got out like Sonny Emery. Yamaha brought out Kenny Aronoff. They brought him out. Yamaha's bringing out Antonio Sanchez on April 8th. He's won like 4 Grammy Awards. And so,
Wow.
yeah, Yamaha's been great. And so that's another way that we bring artists out. So working with the drum companies. And I think you'll see more and more of that over the next couple of years.
Wow, that's really great. And, one of the things that really impresses me, too, is the fact that you do have so much content there on the Drumeo Edge website.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever find it difficult to come up with new content? I mean, obviously, you're doing online lessons every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine you have a long list of lessons that you know you're going to do in the future. But do you ever find it difficult to come up with fresh content?
No. And a lot of people ask that, and they think that we're like scrambling for ideas. And to be honest, we are not scrambling for ideas. We have so many different instructors, and so it's not like I'm teaching having to teach something or different things all the time. Like if I might teach you a cool funk beat or whatever, but then when Dave Atkinson or Mike McCalco might come in and they'll teach funk beats as well, but they'll be a little bit different. They'll teach it a little bit different. And I think the perspective that that gives the students is really great, because they might not have learned good my way. They might not understand the way I break things down. They might just not like the sound of my voice. And so if that's the case, they can go and learn from Mike, or they can go and learn from Dave. And so it's not like we actively duplicate our lessons or anything like that, but I know that if we can have 5 lessons teaching funk beats, and they're all going to have something really, really unique and cool about them. Also, we're getting into transcribing songs, and so almost around once a week, sometimes twice a week, we do full song transcriptions, where that's all note for note, and then we actually do a lesson where we break down almost every single bar within the song. And so if you think about how much music is out there, we're never going to run out.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have over 1,000 hours of lessons, which is a lot, but yeah, the reason we have that is so we hopefully have the right lessons for you. There might be only 5 lessons that are going to be perfect for you, or whatever the student is, and that's kind of our goal and our reasoning behind that.
Right. Well, I think one of the great things, too, is while you do have lessons that are music-based and method-based and technique-based, you also have a lot of lessons out there that are based on the gear and ways to practice. I think one of the most valuable ones that was important to me, you did a really great one on drum head selection. I think y'all must have tested out 30 different drum heads for snare drum heads, and it gave me the ability to hear a lot of the way the drum heads sound differently from one another, and things that I'm thinking about when I'm trying to find the sound that I hear in my head. You know what I mean? And y'all have done a lot of great ones. I know JS did one a few weeks back on ergonomics at the drum set, which I think is really important. I think sometimes I spend as much time moving my kit around as I do playing on it, because I'm always trying to find that, perfect, feel and fit and so forth. And so I think that's something that has been really good, for you guys to offer. And I know that you're a big proponent of practicing with a metronome in particular, and I would love to hear your perspectives on, I know it's important to mic the drums and so forth, but also in videoing yourself as you're playing, which is something that I've toyed around a little bit, just to be able to see, what my faults are, what I'm doing right, when I'm off beat, when I'm on beat, that sort of thing. So you want to talk about the importance of kind of watching yourself and not being narcissistic about it?
Yeah, not so you can see how cool you look, but so you can actually analyze what you're doing. And before video became really easy and popular, it was put up a mirror, and I had a mirror in my practice room, so I could see if I was really hunched over the drum set, or if I was my left wrist was going weird in a weird way, or if something was not set up right, then I could at least see it. And so now that video has become so much easier, we always just say put up your phone, video yourself, look back at it, and see what you're doing wrong. And it's like you can see what you're doing wrong, but you can also then hear what you're doing wrong. You might hear that your snare is rushing more than you thought, or your bass drum is not on time when you thought it was. And so that's where I think videoing yourself is so very important. And in Drumeo, we do something called student focus, where students will submit their videos and we'll review them. And it's been great for the students because it offers that direct feedback from our faculty of instructors, where we can actually help them on a very, very personal level. And so I think videoing yourself is great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you think about or talk about the ability to mic drums, how important is it for a drummer to at least have some fundamental knowledge of sound engineering?
Yeah, I personally, I have maybe a fundamental knowledge, but I've been so lucky to work with such amazing people here that I don't have that creative knowledge. It's definitely not as great as I should, but I really want to get better at it, and I think it's great if you're wanting to become an educator or become a full-time drummer. You should be able to record yourself, at least some basic stuff, so you can put demos of yourself out there on YouTube, because that's kind of expected now. If you're a professional drummer who's doing it full-time, you're expected to have video online of yourself, and that's kind of your business card, right? Because that's the first thing people do when they decide whether or not they're going to get you to play, is they'll watch videos of you. So I think it's very important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And while I think of you as a master in your field, which certainly you are, you're an amazing drummer.
Oh, thank
But
you.
I'm sure there are things that when you were learning, or maybe even still now, that you struggled with. What would you say was the number one thing or area that you struggled with as you were sort of in the learning stages of drumming?
The number one thing I struggled with, like back in the day, was just a single stroke roll. Playing it around the kit without hitting the rims or without it sounding like like without it kind of just turning into this
Yeah.
this unison thing. And I worked on that so hard, and it took me so long. And I don't know why, because I would watch other drummers who were my age at the time, and they were just like flying around. Like, how do they do that? And I know other drummers see me now and like, oh, he can go so fast. It's like, well, yeah, I've worked on it for like, you know, 5 years of hardship. Just like nonstop moving around the kit at 100 beats per minute, 105 beats per minute, 110 beats per minute, and just incrementally getting better. And so that was really, really challenging early on. I don't practice that as much anymore because I feel like I've got it to where I'm comfortable. But nowadays, I'm really trying to become a better musician. So that's what I'm working on now. Is like, if I'm really listening. We have all these special guests come in. Every single one of them says you should listen. You need to listen. If you want to play jazz, you need to be listening to jazz. Don't say you want to play jazz and then like practice like comping exercises. That's not really going to help you as much as listening to some of the greats. And so I've been really focusing on listening, especially in jazz, and then building my vocabulary that way, like with the comping and with independence. And then independence has been a big thing that I practice as well, just because my gig is very different than one that was 10 years ago. Like what I do is try and put out content and lessons and things that help inspire drummers. And so it's very, very different. So my thing is I get to work on things like some solos. I work on a lot of different like open drum solos and random foot ostinatos that most people probably don't work on who play regular gigs or who are on tour. And so I love that about what I get to do. I get to just practice some of the most weird and random things.
Okay, so that's like a really good lead in to my next question, which is about the importance of having a practice routine. I know that's something that you talk about a lot throughout the Drumeo community. So you want to talk to me a little bit about why you think that's so important and how seldom people actually sit down with a practice routine in mind?
Yeah, I think that's like the most important thing when it comes to you actually getting better. I think most people have enough information, and that's not really what they need anymore. They really need help developing a routine where when they're going into practice, they actually get results during that practice session. And so that's where like working with a private teacher is great because they give you a list of things to do every single week. And Drumeo, we do similar stuff. We have things called student plans where a student can submit for a student plan, and we also do things where we do have pre-built practice routines and pre-built like drumming warm-ups, and we have a 20-minute drum workout. We have lots of things like that where you could go in and there's like this set thing for you to do. I think that's very important because if you don't know what you're going to do, you end up just kind of like playing random stuff for however long, and then you come out of that and you don't feel like you've gotten any better. And that's the story I hear from a lot of drummers, is they just don't feel like they're progressing at the rate that they think they should. So when I go into practice, number one tip is to make sure that practicing is easy. Practicing shouldn't be like you have to, set up your drum set, you have to put up sound dampening, you have to do all this stuff in order to practice. It's got to be like, now when I go to practice, it's just sit down and practice in my house, and then actually know what you're going to do as far as routine. Those two things are like so important.
Exactly. Well, and if you're going to spend some time working on a rudiment, for example, is it best to get your pad out so that you can have sort of that concentrated time versus being subject to your own ADD when you have the whole drum kit in front of you?
Yeah, I mean that's a great thing that some people might do. Sometimes generally when I learn a rudiment, it's first on the practice pad. I don't necessarily learn them anymore unless there's some like the hybrid rudiments. But Yeah, and then transfer it to the kit later. I think it's all about just like maintaining interest, and it really depends on the student. Like some students are able to sit at the kit and just practice a rudiment, and that's no problem. But for me, it's like if I'm practicing a rudiment, I like to get it to the point where I can play the rudiment and I can talk or do anything else while I'm playing that rudiment. So I always tell my students, like, what you know something when you can like play the single paradiddle and tell me about your day, tell me what happened today, or that kind of thing. And once they can do that, then it's like they're no longer like bound to this like pattern and constantly thinking about the pattern. They're actually just able to like they'll be able to improvise on it much easier.
Right. Well, and I think that's the point in time where sort of that muscle memory really kicks in, and I think that's a really cool thing that when you feel that happening, that all of a sudden you're not thinking about it anymore. You're just playing that, and I'm sure muscle memory happens at different points for different people. And for some exercises, it comes a lot quicker. For some things, you know, it takes a lot of time to develop. Do you want to talk a little bit about muscle memory and kind of how that sort of comes about as you're developing your skills?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing for me was learning like finger control and like these very fine movements and fine muscles. And what people don't understand is it just takes lots and lots of time and repetition. And that's like, in order to do anything, especially on the drum set, because it's such like a physical instrument, you need to commit to spending a lot of time and repetition in order to get certain things. And so that's, I always tell people, don't expect it to learn like finger control or the molar method in 24 hours, or don't expect to have it after watching a 2-hour lesson or an hour lesson. Like, expect for things to take 3 to 6 months or a year even. For me, finger control, to get it to where I wanted it, took like 5 years. And so everything's a little bit different, and certain techniques will take longer, certain techniques will take shorter, and it's dependent on the person and the technique that you're trying to learn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, for me, one of my biggest weaknesses is really kind of across the board. It's reading, whether it's reading a book or reading drum notation. So how important would you say it is for a drummer to be able to read drum notation? I mean, for me, I'm more of an auditory, learner and a visual learner as opposed to a reader.
Yeah, I think for the purpose of learning, and transferring information from one person to another, it's really good to learn how to read and write. Similar to how at least know how to read a book, right? And you know how to write stuff, obviously, because you're a very accomplished writer. But so I think it's important in that regard. Whether you get it to like the level of some drummers have it when it comes to reading charts, like the big band charts, I don't think that's really as necessary anymore. I know that like Scott Pellegrom, the drummer that was just out, someone asked him a similar question, and he's been playing professionally for 15 years now or something like that, and he's like, I don't think he said he never had a chart, and so it's always just like, here's the song, what do you want to play with it? And that's the way it is more so than it's like, here's what I want you to play, here's a chart, here's the exact notes, now read it. It just doesn't happen nearly as often.
Right. So I shouldn't have to worry so much if that's just not my strength, that I learn in other ways.
No, learn enough so you can like get to the point where if someone gives you a drum book, you can at least figure out the patterns and read that. But you don't need to I don't think you'll ever play a gig where they'll hand you 20 charts and say sight read the whole gig. Like, that just doesn't happen anymore.
Right, exactly. Well, I know you talked a lot about sort of the changing role in the instructor, which, entered Drumeo. I mean, that's how the whole thing sort of makes a lot of sense. But, one of the ways I'm sure you're able to enhance the engagement that you get with the students out there is you're also very active in the social media space, whether it's through Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of how that's augmented your ability to kind of reach more people and really engage with your students?
Yeah. Well, we use social media and kind of any form of media as just a way to connect with students. And we connect with our students wherever they are. And so we use, I answer every single email that I get. And when I send out an email, we have a database of 500,000 people. When I send out an email, if anyone replies to that email that I sent out, it goes to me. It doesn't go to someone else or whatever. And so we use like email as our biggest form of like I wish you would call that somewhat social media. Then we use Facebook, and that's been great. But we use it more as a way to like really listen to our students. So when we put out a lesson, we're very active in the comments and hearing what they have to say, because I think that's very, very important for us as instructors to see if it's helping our students. Like the lessons are completely useless and they'll fall on deaf ears if no students are listening or no students are actually like using the material. And so for us to get feedback, real-time feedback, like through Twitter, through Facebook, and that sort of thing, it's like invaluable. And it allows us to like make adjustments on the fly. So our live lessons are actually, they're broadcast live, and so when we have a host there, and the reason the host is there is so he can kind of guide the lesson to where the people who are watching live can understand and they're getting exactly what they need. And so we use that chat as a way to actually create our lessons on the spot and get direct feedback. And so social media has been great.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I'm a big proponent of it and a big user out there in you know, the various social media sites. And I think one of the things that really impressed me about you and about Drumeo is the same thing that impresses me about the other brands and products that I support. Is I did send you an email, and I think I got a reply within like 5 minutes. You know, when I send out a tweet and mention you guys, whether it's you, Mike McCalco, you're always, you know, right on it, and I think that that's a responsible, you know, thing to do. But you know, I do that for a lot of, you know, brands out there, and DW Drums always, you know, replies back. Nordstrom will, you know, reply back, you know, but there's certain ones that don't. But I think the ones that do, it really, I think, gives you a whole nother level of engagement and feeling like you are part of a bigger community and a bigger something. And I just wanted to commend you on that, because I think it's something that you guys do very well.
Thank you very much. Definitely.
Well, so why don't you tell me a little bit about your sort of vision for the future of Drumeo? I know that it's already very successful, and I'm sure it's so much more than you ever thought it could be, but you're not stopping there, obviously.
No.
So what do you think Drumeo will look like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Well, one thing we're doing, we're launching something called Drumeo for Teachers, and it's basically a platform for teachers to utilize all the Drumeo curriculum and gain access to our network of private students. Because we know a lot of people who sign up to Drumeo, they have a similar story to what you said before. You went for a private lesson and you just didn't feel like you were getting your money's worth, or you were being like, I don't know how to put it. Like it wasn't necessarily bad. It just didn't meet your expectations. And so we want our students to be connected with like really good private instructors. And so we're launching Drumeo for Teachers, which has like a whole database of lessons on how to actually teach, how to motivate students, what order to teach them things in, and that also gets the teachers listed in the directory. And the students will be able to go to the directory, find a private instructor, either in their area or like an online private instructor that has the exact expertise that they are looking for. So if someone wants to take drums from like a Latin drumming expert, they'll be able to find someone on Drumeo and take a private lesson with them. And so I think that's really important, because it kind of merges the two of the Drumeo student who's utilizing the Drumeo curriculum, and then the teacher who will then be woven into the ecosystem, and then they'll both be able to like the student will be able to actually get help on this, direct help on the stuff that they're learning from within Drumeo. So I think that's going to be really, really important. Another thing that I'm working on in addition to that is I really want to do the Drumeo kind of model and kind of what we do. I think is very specific, and the way we do it is very specific, and so I'd love to do it in other languages. So right now I'm researching that, like starting a Drumeo in Mexico or a Spanish-speaking country, and bringing Spanish-speaking instructors in, and basically building a whole another Drumeo that's based around that specific language. Because right now we only do English, and we're leaving out like a big chunk of the entire world. and I would love to reach more drummers. So those are some things we're working on.
That makes sense. Well, obviously, you know, a lot of people who play drums or play any instrument may play more than one instrument. Have you thought about expanding, you know, into guitar or bass or keyboards or voice?
Yeah. Well, I used to work, and I used to own guitarlessons.com, and we actually published products in that space. And then I had a business partner last year, and we basically just decided he wants to do his own thing, I want to do my own thing. So he took all the guitar stuff, and so now they're running that. They're very successful at it. If you check out guitarlessons.com, and they have a cool product called the Guitar System, and I mean, they're doing amazing work in that space. We also have a piano product out, and we also own pianolessons.com. And so the website now has a couple hundred lessons just free. We don't do much with it because drums is kind of our, you know, that's what we love the most. So we're not really planning on working in that space anytime soon. I really just want to reach more drummers, and that's kind of my goal right now.
Right. Well, and the really cool thing about Drumeo Edge is that, you know, it's really no risk. I mean, you can try it, see how it goes, and then, you know, make a bigger commitment later. You want to talk a little bit about sort of the ability to do that and see if it's a good fit for you?
Yeah, well, we basically we'll let people try it for 30 days for free, drumeo.com/trial, and after 30 days, if you can cancel if you want, or you can stay on, and it's $30 a month, or you can sign up for an annual membership, and it's $197 per year. And the reason we offer a trial is just for that exact reason. We want it to work for you. The idea, like with some people when they launch these websites, they want to sign as many people up, and then hopefully never notify them about their billing, or never like try and get them to use the product, because it's like a gym. If everyone used the gym who is signed up for the gym, they wouldn't have enough space, right? And so it's a business model designed on people not using the service. And with Drumeo, we really tried to stay away from that. We do not want that to happen. When people sign up, we want them to use it. We want them to get better. We want them to practice. And so we do everything possible to really try and make that happen. So if you sign up for a Drumeo trial now, you'll within probably 24 or 48 hours, you'll get a phone call from us. We'll want to book a call with you. Not a sales call or anything, just basically trying to help you. And you know, I think that's a good way to do business. Like, I think we'll be rewarded, hopefully, because the student will stay, and I think the student will be rewarded because they'll get exactly what they want, which is to get better at drums. And so every student signs up for Drumeo. They want to get better, and so that's kind of our goal with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's been really great, and I did the free 30-day trial, and I don't even think I got through 2 weeks of it before I went ahead and pulled the plug on a full year, because it totally made sense. And I may not be on there every day, but I would say I'm on there probably 5 days a week in some level, you know, either whether I'm looking through the catalog of different lessons that you have, or physically, you know, online for the live lessons. I just think it's wonderful, and I can't say enough good things about it. Well, let's just switch to a little bit more on the personal side of Jared. So when you're not playing drums, what are you doing?
I like to fish when I can, when the weather's nice. It rains a lot. I have 2 little boys, one named Grayson, one named Sawyer, and a wife named Shanna, and they're great. The boys are just love, like, they're 4 and 2 right now, so they just love not listening and breaking stuff and fighting, but they're still lots of fun. And so that's mainly what I'm doing now. My family all lives really close, so I hang out with family lots and then play drums. I mean, that's like my main hobby, I would say, is playing drums. I play drums pretty much every day. So. Wow,
that's great. And the kids enjoy listening to you?
Yeah, I have like something called a whisper room, like in their playroom, and so it's like a little soundproof booth. And they just like dance and play right outside the room while I'm playing drums. So yeah, they like listening. None of them have like really said I want to try it and I want to play it on my own. But maybe one day. I'm not going to force it on them.
Well, that's very good. Well, and it sounds like you have a nice environment for doing that. So that's wonderful. Well, Jared, those are really all of the questions that I had prepared for you today, and really just wanted to get a bit more deeper dive into what Drumeo is all about and a little bit about your background. But please, if you have additional comments or remarks that you'd like to share with us, I'm all ears.
I don't really have much to add. All I want to say is thank you very, very much. You've been very supportive, and the research that you've done even for this sort of thing has been great. I know we had some trouble making it happen with technical stuff, but that's the way it goes. And for all the drummers who actually watched all this, I really think it's important, whether you invest with Drumeo or whatever you do. I think it's important to invest in your education. It supports the entire, it supports yourself, it supports a teacher, it supports people kind of trying to further the drum community. And so I know there's a lot of free stuff available on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, but it's really good to get with people who know what to do, what they're doing, and get with a community that understands that we're all in this together and we're all trying to help each other reach our drumming goals. And so I really encourage everyone to just invest in their education, and I think you'll be rewarded for that by becoming a better drummer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great point, and I like what you said, about sort of sharing the videos and so forth. And for me, from the beginning of my journey, I have no shame, obviously. So I put out videos to my Facebook friends all along that show everything from me, dropping sticks to playing offbeat and all of these other things, because to me, I don't want to put something out there that's perfect. I want to show that, I'm learning just like everybody else, and I've got flaws and all kinds of things, and I can enjoy laughing at myself and putting some of those things out there. But I think it's been, a fun journey, and just really enjoy finally sort of seen this come to fruition, because I've really wanted to be a drummer my whole life, and it's as much a part of the writing that I do. It's all the creative process, and there's nothing like having a very stressful day and being able to sit down at a kit and beat the crap out of something, right?
Yes, exactly. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So no stress at all. Well, Jared, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to engaging more through Drumeo and beyond, and wish you all the success in the world.
All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.